Yeah, very much looking forward to playing with some dwarves.
In mech suits.
That didn't sound right at all.
Welcome to Status Quo. I'm your host, Chance, and today I am joined by Sundered Gaming's lead scribbler, Bear.
That's me.
Sundered Gaming's lead... What's your job again?
I put stuff together to make it go.
To not go?
To make it run.
Not go.
Well, we have yet to see that. Johnny Boy, and we are also joined by Sundered Gaming's lead artist, Shad. Today we're going to discuss some of the finer points on single-player games. Reasons people keep coming back, why we keep coming back, all that kind of fun stuff. So I'd like to start by throwing it over to the man from the Stone Age, Shad. You talk
From the Stone Age.
Why do you sound like you're like on a jazz radio station?
I was going to ask the same
Right?
exact
Right?
thing.
Maybe I'll watch some videos.
We're rolling on into the dawn.
Jazz.
Single player.
Shad.
The finer points of single players.
What the hell is this?
So, rolling over to the man from the Stone Age, what was the first single-player game you played?
Pong.
Pong?
Seriously?
Did you actually play Pong?
Yeah.
No. Sorry. I want to take that back.
Dude.
Was that actually the first game, or was it like that Robotron
Pong.
thing?
No, Pong. Pong was,
Okay.
but we had an Atari when I was a kid.
So you didn't go to the arcade first? The arcade came to you?
You have to understand where I was born and raised.
I have.
Small town, 500 people. You could only get there by boat or by plane.
You could have had a Pac-Man machine. I don't know.
Nope. They didn't have a pack machine.
You didn't have arcades?
I figured it was harder to get an Atari than it was an arcade.
Like
I
one
have to
arcade?
show you guys a map of this
Yeah.
sometime.
Well,
Because it
we'll-
honestly hasn't grown in 40 years.
Yeah, well,
Can't
it's shrunk.
imagine.
It's like half the size of what it used to be.
Yeah. So, but we got an Atari, and I don't remember how we got it or whatever it was. But yeah, we had an Atari. It was my brother's, and we had Pong and Combat, which was a little tanks. And
That little tank game.
yeah,
Wow.
and I remember you could go into the corner and kind of Jimmy, and then come out on the opposite corner. Yeah, little cheats for that thing. Pong, Pitfall.
Back when, fighting cheat codes back in the day.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, going from the Stone Age to the Bronze Age over there. What was your first game there, John? First single-player game?
Super Mario Brothers 3. Yeah, when we got the Nintendo, I think it's already been out for like maybe a year or two. So I didn't get to experience the whole Mario Brothers Duck Hunt combo game.
Duck Hunt.
That was my first.
Yeah. So Mario Brothers 3 is when it was like the game that it came with. Then yeah, definitely had a lot of fun with that. But it wasn't single player though, technically.
Well,
That was the first game you ever played?
Yeah.
On a video game?
well, and then Renaissance
feel
Man over here already gave his answer there, but go ahead.
Technically, I played in the Pac-Man with my dad when I was in the hospital when I was little, because they had like a little arcade area for the kids to go into.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
would play Pac-Man, but the first game I remember playing at home was the Duck Hunt and Mario from the 1989 Nintendo. Those were 3 games, and then my dad got a football one for it. And the graphics, obviously, if you look at it today, I don't remember the name of it, but I remember playing that for hours because I loved it so much. But yeah, Nintendo.
I even think during the Nintendo days, Madden had it.
I don't know if it was Madden or not. I don't remember. I just know that it was
Techno Bowl?
I'm pretty
Oh.
sure it wasn't Madden. It was something else.
Mhm.
But yeah, I remember playing Duck Hunt, and it's so much fun switching. Like, it's your turn. I died. I wasted a life. Like, that's how we played. But yeah, that was good.
All right. The Rocket Age over here with me. My first single-player game. I'm going to say it, and I know
Halo?
he's going to argue. No, it wasn't Halo. I'd have to say my first single-player game was probably one of the Maddens. In the barracks.
No.
Yeah, I knew he was gonna argue.
There it
Well,
is.
there it
No, 'cause
is.
I would have had stuff on my computer that you'd have played.
Are we going to go back to Age of Empires here? Because that's probably right there at it too.
What year were you born? 95? 97.
97.
Oof.
Yeah, that's That's
we only got a couple decades here.
It's so. I mean, Pong to what are you? 38, right?
Or 37.
Pong to. That's just a
And now
huge,
VR, where you're like slashing
yeah,
undead.
literally.
Yeah.
Good. So when 1970, I guess 78, 79, maybe 80, when those games started coming out, because you didn't get a console at home until you were.
Oh, you were. Yeah, that's a technical age.
That was so that's
So,
technical meaning for
I mean,
so you look at all those games that we played growing up, and like a lot of the stuff that kept us coming back to those games was the fact that like there was just good gameplay, and like there wasn't this whole.
Yeah, but did we really even know anything better?
No, but that's
don't.
kind of where I was gonna get
you
to.
don't know till
It's
you don't
like
know.
we had such limited access to video games back
Yep.
in the day that it was like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna play through this game like 600 times because I don't have anything else and I still find it fun.
Right.
Versus nowadays, we have such unlimited access to so many different games that like, what keeps players actually coming back to single player games nowadays? What is it?
Yeah, I mean, because you look at going back to all the single player games that we had as kids, they were, I mean, and you try to do the nostalgia thing and go back and play those old like Pitfall, and you're like, wow, this is like arcade. Because it was literally like 4 stick figure square thingy, and it's swinging on a rope and it's falling in a hole. It's to playing World of Warcraft or Halo, or it's just like, oh. So I don't know why we kept playing freaking. This is all I had.
But nowadays, like, I'll go back and I'll play Fable. Fable 1,
still
2,
do.
3. Like, I'll play the crap out of
I
it.
still do Zelda 1.
But it's, I mean, it's a single player game with like, there's no really way to expand on it. So what's your go-to game now, John? If you were like, I just want to play a single player game by myself, and it's a game I played 100 times, what is it?
That is a good question. There are games that I'll go back to, but I won't like finish it. You know?
Mm-hmm. Every time I've started Skyrim.
Have you not finished Skyrim?
No, I have
Like,
not.
Not even like one playthrough?
Nope.
Oh wow. All right.
It's okay, I haven't either. I'm not afraid to admit it. I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I would have to say the game that I've replayed the most and is probably Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. But I never had a Nintendo 64.
What? You're not even playing it on the OG console?
Nope.
You got to get one of those CRTVs set up and have it plugged into there. Like, that's
I
the
do.
only way to play it.
I do.
Absolutely the only way to play it. That's what keeps you coming back. Even that's still an older game.
Yeah.
So what keeps you coming back to it?
Well, nostalgia for one, and just two, it's just like it was a good game. It was clean. It was nice. It was fun. Yeah, it's kind of hard to describe that factor that it has because it only applies to me. Right? I mean, it could apply to other people that go back to it and play it like over and over again, but like doing like the puzzles and stuff like that. Even though I know what the puzzle is already, going back to remember when I first like, oh, I remember when it took a while for me to figure this guy out, and then like sometimes I'll get tripped up on it. I'm like, really? It fooled me again? I already know how this puzzle goes.
What about you, Bear? What's that one single player game that just keeps you coming back every time?
Probably the original. Well, I would say the Dawn of War series, Soulstorm, which is a 40K universe, but it's an RTS. It's got the most units, the most races, the most option to customize. The story's great. Like that I have a lot of fun with. And then obviously we've talked about it in the last podcast or the one before that about the Total War franchise. I can go back and play any of those. They're all, I can do historical battles. I can disappear and think while I'm playing or just relax and not have to worry about playing with anybody else. Or those are the ones that I would go back to like regularly. They're still on my computer. Like they'd never come off. Like they just sit there waiting, be like, "Hey, you want
Come
to
play with me?"
tonight?"
Yeah.
None
Like-
of your friends are on, but
like-
I'm here.
Come
Like
play
me
with
and
me,
the-
bear.
Like me in the group chat when I send my Guild Wars meme. Everyone knows I'm getting on. Like, come play with me. What about you?
Guild Wars
What's
time.
that single player game that keeps you coming back every
So I have
time?
a lot of retro games like Donkey Kong. I used to play that. It was my escape when I was a kid. I had like 4 quarters and I could play that thing for 2 hours. But the Robotron was another one that I got to. Tron was a good one that I love to get into because they're just quick, easy games. I have them all on emulator, so I play them because it's just they don't take time. But if you're gonna kick me into a console game that I like to just pick up and play,
Or more modern?
maybe probably Mario 64. And just you can pick it up, play for 10 minutes, and put it down because you can get out of a level and done, and you save a game and you can keep playing and playing and playing. I like it because
I want
everybody
to
else.
say that Age of Empires 2 is probably older than Mario Kart.
Yeah, but I don't.
No,
I don't
Mario.
wait-
Not Mario Kart.
Mario 64.
Yeah, Mario 64.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that the one where
I'm
they
saying
have- you
Age
have,
of
like, a
Empires
guy-
2
like
is
a-
older than
a
that.
bu- a
Probably.
buddy with you?
No,
Like
you're
that?
Mario, and you go through and you collect all the stars.
No, I don't think I played that one.
Mario 64?
Mm-mm.
Oh, we'll have to show
I
you.
played
Yeah.
Mario Kart on the 64.
No. It's
Right.
yeah. You just go through every world, and you got to solve all the puzzles and collect stars, and you do your world like 6 times and get all 6 stars and go on to the next world.
The first time Mario went into 3D.
Mhm.
Oh, I've seen that game. I've
Yeah.
seen
So-
people play it. Yeah.
Very retro,
I've just
kind
never
of
played it.
for me
Or,
anyway.
like,
So that was
the people that do like those speed runs with those glitches.
Yeah.
Are just like
Oh, those people are crazy.
Yeah.
Some of those speedruns, like, just
first of all, how did you find this? And second, like some of the glitches that they do is like, who in their right mind would be like going backwards this one pixel later spot to like
right.
yeah.
figure out, oh, this
Don't
jumps
go in the
into
corner
over
with a
this.
tank and try to get into the wall.
Yeah,
Well,
but
but
there's
then-
people that like doing that.
But see, like going to a corner and be like finding out what happened, that eventually you're probably gonna hit a corner. But I'm just saying, like some of the stuff that they find in like that Super Mario 64 is just like ridiculous. It's just like,
Right.
who would have ever
Yeah.
found this?
Standing at the bottom stairwell, hunched over, walking backwards, and just hitting the jump button, and it launches you up the stairs and then into the star room without having to
Do it all, yeah.
do anything. Like, just the weirdest
Right,
weirdest
just
things.
to shave off what, like 5 seconds or something like that.
Yeah. But then if you miss it, you're like, oh, I gotta restart my speed run because
Right.
I'm late.
You know what single player game I would play if I could find it again? Blood. It was like you were an undead vampire slayer guy.
Yeah.
And you woke up in a crypt. And
Yep.
that was my first PC game before Doom. My dad had gotten a gateway computer, and like if I could play that again, I remember playing that.
Was
as
it
a
Blood
kid.
Rain? Blood.
It's
Blood
something-
Rain, I think is what it
it's
was.
Blood. You start off like a pitchfork.
Yep.
And you're like fighting undead, like zombie. I don't know. Like it was all kinds of messed up. But just for like a retro reference, that was my first computer game. I'm pretty sure it was called Blood. I might be wrong, but you wake up in a coffin and you're like have a pitchfork thing, and it's like time to kill.
So we've got nostalgia, we've got story, we've got some sort of feeling that Ocarina of Time gives you that you can't necessarily describe. So how do you think single player games are doing nowadays? What do you think is the driving factor behind most of the single players now?
It should be story and gameplay.
Should be. What do you think it is?
Because like you don't have the challenge of like or the randomness that you get from like multiplayer, right?
Mhm.
As far as like, you know, what's gonna happen when I join with like 40 other people. You know. But like single players to me are just like, you know, people who like to read books, people who like to go to the movies, right? We're meant to tell a story. However, if you don't have good gameplay to back that story, it is very tough to get through and be like, the only way that pushes you on is the story, and you're just like, okay, I have to do this like monotonous stuff now so I can get to the next scene. It was like, okay, next scene. Oh, that was awesome. I want to know what happens next. Monotonous stuff. And it's just like monotonous.
I feel like single player wise, like if you're trying to tell a story and you can't get your people, like your players to invest in your story, you're not gonna keep them.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah,
like,
yeah.
like Gears of War, like don't get me wrong, it's a multiplayer game, online, all that stuff. But like, I've never been so invested in an actual storyline of a game before than I was in Gears of War.
But see, I would call Gears of War a single player game.
Right.
When you're playing
Because-
when you're playing the campaign,
Right.
Right.
correct?
It's a single player game that
game.
has a multiplayer aspect to it.
Yeah. That's how I look at it too.
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess that could
Now,
be.
It-
Could be
you
defined
look
like
at
that.
Call of Duty. Call of Duty is definitely a multiplayer game that has somewhat of a campaign.
Got a gimme. It's like,
Yeah.
Right.
You
Like,
bought the game.
Right. But like back in the day, Dawn of War, you didn't buy Dawn of War so you can trash people online. You bought not Dawn of War, sorry.
Let's say that
Gears of
wasn't-
War.
Gears of War. You didn't buy Gears of War so you can, mess with people online. You got it because,
Dawn
You
of
wanna
War,
know what
isn't
happened
that
once.
40K?
yeah, Dawn of War is 40K.
Yeah.
Yeah. You wanted to know what happened next in that story, just like you did with Halo. Halo was a single player game that had a multiplayer feature afterwards.
So if story and gameplay is what drives the single player games nowadays, who do you think's doing it best right now?
Well, in my opinion, there's different types of single player games.
That's fair. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, totally. Because my whole genre has changed. I used to play
You play
RPG.
games with like no story.
Right. So, but I used to do like Golden Sun and Legend of Zelda and all that kind of stuff. It was an RPG, and I love to build characters and do all that stuff. Nowadays, I just like to build it. So, totally different scenario. For
there's a
me.
lot of Factorio.
Dyson
Factorio,
Sphere.
And Dyson Sphere.
That's yeah.
That's Factory.
Yeah.
No, they're good. I mean, it's just I like because it's a challenge to the challenge is can you get to that end point? And where in Dyson Sphere you can get all the way to the end with all the builds, but can you still make it sustainable? I have yet to be able to create my whole stuff and have it sustain itself without me having to go back through and changing stuff or whatever it is, because you limited resources and all that. It's always changing, and you're like, crap, I'm gonna do this.
Have
gotta
you
do
ever
that, gotta do that.
played any Sims games? Like where you manage like
Taylor-
people or
Yeah,
like,
Taylor plays all the Sims 1 through 5. She's had all those. I've seen a lot of other ones. I like the resource management, building, maintaining. Not really
Well,
the
what about
people.
like SimCity?
No.
Okay.
Like I need to do sewer lines and power lines and all that. Nope. No Sims.
I mean, to each their own on that one, I guess. So then for you, newer single player games, it's more about challenge.
Yeah.
You like to be challenged on that.
Yeah, and they just do it in a new way to challenge me. I mean, like all three of the games that I play, Factorio, Satisfactory, and Dice Sphere, they kind of do it the same way. But you got to build something to build something to build something. But some of them are more intricate than others, and resource management.
I mean, Satisfactory, you can make some awesome factories. And it's just like it's just crazy because like I mean I like it because it's a scale to where the person you're just like,
Right?
oh my gosh.
Yeah, you put the freaking that first tower you put up, and it goes to the freaking stars, and you're like, you gotta get 80 feet away from it. just
Oh,
to
I'm
see
talking about the elevator. Yeah.
Yeah. Come on, holy smokes! that thing's
Does it
huge.
work in VR?
I haven't done it yet, but I think it does.
I think they're probably working towards it, but it's not.
You could probably do it.
'Cause
Well,
that
it
would
probably
be
wouldn't look
nuts.
crazy awesome, but it would probably work.
If they just moved it to Unreal Engine 5, I'm sure they'll be working on it.
Yeah.
5 is much better for VR than 4.
Right.
So I'm sure if it's possible, they'll be working on it. Just they were our dev spotlight last. So we were talking about the company in general and
Unreal.
No, Coffee Stain.
Coffee Stain Studios.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, and they have a whole bunch of stuff they're doing, and they do publishing companies, so they do a lot of cool stuff. But I would guarantee that if they have the possibility of doing VR, they would.
Because it's definitely because I mean the guy literally like has a remote that controls everything. It's like okay, that's perfect. You have the remote in your hand, and you're able to go. I like a zoo. Build my factory.
You know about Satisfactory?
Yeah.
Yeah. You build everything up, but you have to go back to your factory to get parts to build your thing.
Not if you conveyed it to you.
You got to go back to your building to make
Well,
a conveyor
well,
to get it to go to you.
Or you send the drone to go get it.
So if we're talking story, we're talking challenge, we're talking mechanics. Those are like the 3 pillars of like
Well, it's like building a fire.
if you
right?
want to make a good game,
Yeah.
a good single player game, and bring a lot of people in. Those are the 3 that you have to hit.
Right.
What are some single player games that you were looking forward to that just kind of flopped,
That flopped.
and why? Why do you
Ooh.
think that they flopped hard or didn't quite get what it was that they wanted out of it?
there's very rarely I've gotten a game that I personally like. Just like, okay, this is garbage. Because I appreciate all types of games, so I would like sit there through like the monotony to get through through the minutia to get to the end. But I can't really say as far as like story wise, I've never been like upset with the story. Aside from maybe Halo 4. I don't know. I haven't played Halo 4.
I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking. I'm just like, I can't.
That's just gonna be like John's quote of the year.
Yeah. It's just one of those things that like you put people on the spot and be like, oh, wait.
Well, if you read the podcast notes,
I wouldn't worry about
There's
that.
a question on the podcast notes.
He throws them out.
Yeah, he does.
What was the question?
Like
No,
any game that you were excited for that flopped.
or even any game that you see out there that you're like,
Actually,
this could have been done.
You
better.
know what? Actually, yeah, I do have one. So when Dragon Age came out, when it first came out, freaking loved that game, loved the story, loved everything that was about it, right? And they came out with Dragon Age 2, and it had nothing to do with the Grey Wardens, and I was just like, oh, well, this was disappointing. Because like the first one, you're joining this elite, faction of people that are here to save the world. And granted, yeah, you saved the world in the first one, and technically they're only needed during blights, which makes sense. And it was setting up for an overarching story, but the way that they transitioned me wasn't very well, because one, you were playing a person instead of your own character that you got to pick that had multiple different backgrounds, right? And so you're pretty much playing their story. And granted, the mechanics of the game were a lot better, so I played through it and I was having fun with it. But like the story was kind of a letdown in the end, because like, oh well, I'm just fighting this other things that were, I don't know, not really as
railroaded into it.
Yeah, kind of, sort of, and like the story, instead of like the end boss being like this awesome dragon, it's just like, oh, I'm just defeating the clan master of this one clan that can technically take over the world, but not really, because I beat him.
Because I beat him. So you'd say story was trumped by mechanics and challenge on that one.
Yeah.
And that's why that was just a letdown overall.
But then they come up with the Inquisition and just like, boom, just like, okay, I don't care, I'm not a Great Warden anymore.
No one expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Right. Yeah, so, yeah.
My biggest letdown one was Zelda Link to the Past. That one, the side scroller, that one sucked from day one. I hate
What?
Yep, I hate that side scroller.
Dude, I love that game.
Nope. Took away
that was the introduction of the Master Sword.
Yeah, no.
How could
That
you
whole,
not?
that whole, I
Oh
hated
my
that whole thing.
gosh.
That thing sucked. That was the most disappointing after playing Zelda, the original game. And
I think you're thinking of Zelda 2.
No, Link to the Past.
No, Zelda
one
2
of the
was the side
side-scroller.
scroller. Zelda Link to the Past was top down.
What was this number 2?
Um,
No, it was a Link to the Past. I'm almost
Link's
positive.
Adventure.
Was
was
it a
number
Link's
2.
Adventure?
Yeah.
Check that out. Whatever the second
We're
one
having our
was,
fact checker check
it was
right
Right.
now.
it was disappointing as hell.
How about that?
Hold on, he's got to put.
Glasses
you go.
on. Yeah. What is it?
All right, can we pick a game this century?
Disappointing. That was it for me.
Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link.
Oh.
When did it come out?
Let me
Zelda
just
2,
it's
Adventure of
it's
No, you said A Link to the Past.
I
Oh,
don't
whatever.
even remember it.
You don't remember it?
No.
Shut up.
it's probably like 16-bit.
Yeah.
It's Nintendo.
It's way back. Originally,
it was Nintendo.
NES.
Original Nintendo?
Yeah. Because A Link to the Past was the first Zelda on Super Nintendo.
Well,
Zelda-
what was the Zelda on the Nintendo? The original Nintendo?
Was Zelda and Zelda,
Zelda.
2.
Because I played the original Zelda.
Yeah, Zelda.
That was the only one Zelda that I played all the way through.
Hey, I'm gonna date him real quick.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What do we think the release date of this game was?
Of which one? Zelda 2?
Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link.
87.
Yeah, before that. No, it was after that.
92.
I would have to say it was probably
Looking at my screen.
No,
over
no.
here.
He's like August 7th,
I have to say like 90.
1990.
John got it on the nose.
Oh.
87.
87?
Wow.
I probably didn't buy it until 90.
Yeah.
That game came
I-
out 10 years before I was born.
And it sucked.
And it sucked.
Yeah,
That's
I
cool.
wonder
It-
why.
It wasn't as bad as E.T.
Well, if you want to go bad games from the past, I could list you a bazillion of them.
I was
Oh
more
my goodness.
thinking in the realm of like
2000s.
common era games that are like coming out now that like developers are struggling to like actually sell to people because they're
Dragon Quest was good. Dragon Quest 2 and 3 sucked.
Does anybody know what Dragon Quest was?
Kinda. I kind of know like the guy because he's like a cartoon character.
Oh,
and
you
I
know
always,
what?
and I always get him mixed up.
I
with
do
the,
know what you're talking
with
about now.
the sword of the stone or sword in the stone.
That's wrong.
Guy for some reason.
Yeah, those aren't it. Regardless,
Yeah.
I know which one you're talking about.
But yeah, those the second ones were the follow-ups were disappointing.
Why? Why were they disappointing?
Just the storyline gameplay all the way through was just it didn't grab your attention and hold your attention like the rest.
Do you think
The original one that just kind of you're like, oh wow, that's unique, it's new, and they just did nothing different.
But
They
do you
just-
think that's what it was? Do you think it wasn't even the story of the second or third one? It was just the fact that like you got to experience this new mechanic, this new style of gameplay, and then they didn't build upon it, and then they lost your interest, or was it story?
I don't know because so here's my and it could have been 100%. I'm not going to argue that point. It absolutely could have been. I've done it. I played it. It was the same thing. But like with me for movies, if I liked a movie, you don't have to try to make the second one bigger, better, more bangs, more this, more. Just make it along the same line so I can enjoy the story. So I don't know that if it still had a consistent storyline and it was still decent playthrough, whatever, then I think I'd have still enjoyed it. But storyline just wasn't there. They just didn't grab you. There was no investment of you playing the game and going, oh yeah, I'm part of this game, doing the thing, and I'm the hero. And nope, there's nothing.
The story,
Story.
somewhat mechanic, but mostly story. What about you, Bear?
Well, the most recent would be Dark Tide because I thought that would be a story,
Right?
and
We
then
were
I could play
promised a story, got
multiplayer
no
with my
story.
friends.
Yeah.
So like you have a teaser trailer with Dan Abnett, who I've read his books, not all of them because there's a lot, but here you go. There's a great writer for the 40K universe. Got me all hyped up about it, and then I realized when I got the game and started playing it, there's no real campaign. There's no story at all. So like I'm supposed to rely on my imagination when I spent this money, when I'm trying to escape and embrace the story as a character in this universe, but you have nothing. So that was very disappointing to me. Like, I like the mechanics of the game. I actually enjoy playing the game, but there's no story. And like, if I want to play solo, which I thought you'd be able to do, there's no solo. Like, you can't even play with just bots. You have to play with other people. So that it's like you guys went down. Fat Shark went down, in my opinion, from Vermintide to Dark Tide when I thought they were going to be going up. And that was really disappointing. Like, I get it. The first one didn't really have much of a story either. Right. I got that. But you come out with Dan Abnett talking about the story in this game, and then there literally is like nothing. It's like, hey, you suck. Do better. You suck.
Or
do
you gotta
better.
keep proving yourself.
There's a traitor, and then the game's over. Like,
Well, spoiler alert, by the
it's
way.
been out.
Yeah, it's been out for a bit now.
Yeah.
Hey, people still don't
that's-
know that the Titanic sunk, okay?
Or
What?
the Earth is round.
Well, the Titanic didn't sink, so
It was a sister ship.
yeah,
Yeah. There was a second ship.
it was.
There's a second shooter.
Yeah, they did it. They did it for the insurance money because they couldn't
Yeah.
get the insurance off the other one.
Correct.
Plus, there's a whole bunch of stuff with J.P. Morgan, and yeah, it's we won't go into
Black
it.
Rock.
I don't have my tinfoil hat right now. Okay, I won't go into this. If you think the Titanic was sunk,
Let's
leave a comment.
So let's do this next week. Let's do conspiracy theories and see which ones we get next week.
I bet you we could look into like gaming industry conspiracy
Conspiracy
theories.
theories?
If we
Oh,
could,
there's
like,
a lot of them.
we could like break some stuff.
I got a
There's
little
quite a few.
teaser one that I think was interesting. You remember the thing I told you about with the what was it, the movie that's coming out with Cleopatra,
Yeah.
and then now you have the Total War people doing the Egyptian. Like,
Mhm.
I'm trying to figure out if you look at the subtle things, like here's the movie that's coming out, getting people hyped about seeing this movie, and in the gaming community, here's the same genre, same style. So are they piggybacking, or does it just happen to be like a, you know?
I don't think there's any coincidence in that
I
industry.
don't know.
think
I don't
they-
either. 'Cause
they,
it's a very clever, to me, it's very clever marketing because, in my opinion, there are significantly more. I mean, I'm excited about the Pharaoh coming out and all that, and I don't want to go too far down it, but there's so many other historical things that I'm still waiting for that they could do that they haven't done yet. But I just thought it was interesting. So,
Well, that's actually a really good point because you start looking at like search engine optimization, and like all they have to do is like pay for something around like the word Cleopatra.
right,
So when anybody types it in, they're like the first ad that's on there.
right.
Yeah, there's a lot. I feel like we should do that. Everybody picks like one conspiracy theory and you just break it down.
one. There's like
One.
Each gets one. We only got an hour, guys.
Yeah,
Like
you
15 minutes
spend-
per
Do we?
person.
This is our podcast.
That's fair.
I was
That's
about
fair.
to say we could talk
I
about
don't
it
know.
more.
Those devs are kind of mean sometimes. They don't let us do what we want.
Especially those off-screen devs. So as I was gonna say, as far as like when it comes to single-player games, there's also like how they tell the story, whether it's through like cinematics or you find the story out yourself. To me, I'm not necessarily a fan of like finding out myself because like, what if I miss something? I always have that fear of like, did I get everything? Did I grab all the nuggets?
you get stuck and you're like, where the hell am I supposed to go? And then you got to talk to every person. in
Oh
the
yeah,
frickin-
talk to everybody. Like,
Shit.
oh, okay. You, good luck with your
Yeah, I
problem.
talked to you an hour ago. You didn't say this, asshole.
or like you go to like your quests, right? It's like the pivotal thing that you need is not there because you're supposed to pay attention to what the guy actually said, and it's just like, yeah.
I don't know about that.
Because like to me, if your quest is too long for me to get a snippet of what you want, I'm not gonna read it. Especially if I'm like cruising and going through. So it's like if your bulk of your story is in that quest, chunks like, well, I'm sorry, you'll find a better way for me to feed it to me.
So would you prefer like hearing it than reading? Like if it's a long text, would you rather just have them dialoguing?
If it's a long text, that makes sense as to why I'm reading it. But if you're giving me like a half an hour or a half a page dialogue to go, hey, I need that book that's on the top shelf, that's like 3 cities away, then it's like, okay.
But like, is that a terrible thing if it's like a main quest, like main storyline quest? Like, I understand you're like running through town and there's apostrophes everywhere exclamation points everywhere, and yeah, don't even start. And then you like run over and it's like this side quest of this guy explaining why you need to go kill 5 boars in the forest, and you're like, I didn't need an explanation for this whatsoever. But like, if it's, hey, I need the Necronomicon from 3 cities over in this abandoned house, but it's guarded by this like, you
don't need to tell me that it's guarded. You just say, hey, it's in a very dangerous place.
Well, regardless, would you prefer just
a lot of times,
a quick and neat, like, hey, this is like your objectives, or would you prefer to actually gain story from it, like telling you the history of the Necronomicon in the story and what he's going to use it for and how it's going to change the outcomes of whatever is going on?
So if it's vital information, I don't see why you couldn't put it in a cinematic, like God of War.
You know why you can't put it in a cinematic, John?
Because it takes 20 minutes.
Yeah, no. Yeah, you try rendering out a cinematic. You know how long it took me to do the Ages of Latero logo?
I don't care how long it took
just to render the like 10 seconds of that was like 2 days.
What you need to do is come over and just play God of War Ragnarok.
So when we're playing D&D, do I need a little bell button there that says skip?
You know what? That'd be awesome.
I don't need that damn skip.
I don't need it. Don't need it. We're not going that way anyways.
Everybody gets their
I'm
bell.
not going there. Right.
Like,
Stop playing my storyline, DM.
Yeah, no, stop describing the Barbie. We're not going there. No, because if you play God of War, there's no cutscenes, no nothing. Everything is all fixed on you, and it transitions from storytelling to combat to storytelling very fluently, and it's a very, what you call a very cinematic game, right? And not for everybody because some say it's like it slows it down or it's too slow or what have you. But if it's during like traversal, right? Because it's kind of a neat way to do it. So like when they're loading a new section, right? You typically have to go through this traversal, and typically they slow your character down. And during that time, while your character's slowed down, he's either talking to, you know, Memoron or his partner or whoever is with him, and that's when they're giving out, you know, lore details about like the area that we're going to or why we're searching this and stuff like that. But if I'm coming to you and you're like my main quest and you're giving me a half a text wall, you know, of lore stuff, if I wasn't necessarily caught in from like the first like 10 minutes, I'm probably not going to be reading them. I'm just kind of need a place. Oh, just send me here. Yeah.
Well, I also feel like the story should flow to the point of like you shouldn't necessarily need to hit like quest markers, progress storyline.
Mhm.
Like it should just all kind of flow easily by itself.
Right.
So that being said, if you were to develop a single player game, an RPG, let's go with that, with the style of like,
About like what, 4 years from now?
it's got a question mark on it, so we'll see. So if you were to develop an RPG, a single player game, what would be your focus? I'm gonna throw one over to Bear.
I would do a combination of both, of how God of War does it, where you have a little bit of that, like you're walking or you're going to this area, you're trying to traverse and you're talking to the character, but then like say you get up to the top of that mountain and you get punched in the face, and then the screen goes black and it's a cinematic, and then you get pulled back in to where you're controlling your character. I think being able to do both of those would make the storytelling more real. Like here you are just talking to this guy climbing up or whatever, and then something happens and it's cinematic. You're like, oh, what? And then you're back in it, like, oh, we're getting ambushed, we're getting attacked. Like, I think balancing between the two, because I think I like for instance, Blizzard. Most of their cinematics are amazing. Like I can't really think of one that I haven't just watched and enjoyed watching that 3 minute trailer or whatever. So I think it's important to have that for people because it's like, this is so cool. Like I hope they make a show like with that kind of graphic.
Well,
But-
even their in-game cinematics that they've been doing with like the in-game engine or that kind of looks like the engine, right? I have been pretty
Impressed.
special. Yeah, impressive. Yeah.
Well, I'll even say there's like expansions that put out that like I didn't like at all, and some that I even hated. But you can't dog on Blizzard's ability to make a cinematic.
Nope.
Correct.
Even like Mists of Pandaria, like that whole human and orc fighting. Don't get me wrong, the human should have gotten his whooped. But and then they get like their asses kicked by a panda. It was
Racially
like,
biased on that one.
what is going on? Like it was an awesome cutscene, beautifully done. Not cutscene, cinematic. So it's like there's definitely a time and a place for them, and I think if you can invest enough time into a single player game, which companies should. I mean, there's no reason you shouldn't give your players the biggest bang for their buck. But I do think that like there's certain times within playing a video game where like I can set my controller down and just be engulfed into what I'm about to go do.
Like you're playing this, and you're like, I can't believe this is happening. Oh, and then like when you're making a video game that's single player that's telling a story, you should be, in my opinion, pulling people in to the point where they finish that game, they want more, and they're telling other people, like, you need to play this. Like, hey, this was intense. I loved it, or whatever that is. And like, you can, if your target market is RPG players and all that, like, figure out who you're going after. But like, you want to be able to reach those people that love that universe or that like that style of play, and then they're like, wow, I need to tell someone else about this, and I want the next one. Or is there going to be like a DLC or like more content? That's for me. That's what it is, and I think you can accomplish that doing the storytelling like God of War, but also having a few cinematics that just really bring it in. Like, I don't want to have a cheap, corny fight between two NPCs. I want to see like the cinematic of them or whatever fighting. And you're like, whoa, these guys are, tough. Just my
You need to play God of War.
yeah. There's a lot of things I gotta do.
What about you, John? What you're developing a single player RPG. What's your focus? Not just because you're a coder. What would be the thing you want to make sure is done
Let's see,
correctly?
my focus would probably be mechanics and storage implementation and not just kidding.
Yeah, storage. Yeah, you mean the issue we're having now?
I meant like inventory, but all right.
They have extra bags.
Yeah.
You start out with 50 bags.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, the inventory on my C drive is getting pretty full. Thank you.
No,
Conversation boring you, John?
no. What as far from an RPG? Well, so are we talking about like an action RPG?
Call it whatever you want to call it, John.
Well, it's
God of War,
game.
Fable, adventure, like
that's what I mean,
whatever.
like, is this like a tactics or is this like, action RPG where?
Okay, look at the game that we plan on putting out
And talk about that.
and talk about what you would do to.
Oh, I got you. So it'd be an action RPG. So essentially, what I would want out of an RPG is to have my decisions ultimately affect the ending to a point to where it's not like, all right, so BioWare, does a lot of this, right? Where like it looks like you're going in a different pathway, but end goal is still the same.
Mhm.
I want to be able to be like, whatever path goes, it goes like that, like in a like.
So your decisions make the difference.
So there's like a multiple like whatever 20 endings that people may either find or not find, and that continue that. And if we make a part 2 to continue those stories on to either splinter or come back together, because even if they do come back together at the end, at least to one grand finale, whatever it is, it would make sense if that makes you know what I mean. But at least so people can make the choice is like, oh, do I give this bum like 50 silver, or do I kick him in the face, or do I just ignore him? To be the end result that he's like the general of the last army, and he joins my side because I gave him 50 silver, way back when at the first like 10 minutes of the game, or he becomes a major assassin because they kick him in the face, right? And all he did was coming out for rent for me, and he tries to one boss fight before like the last fight, and is like hard as heck to get by. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or he doesn't show up because you just completely ignored him and thinks you're insignificant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not to say that's what we're gonna do, but I'm just saying I want choices there to be like, either you do something or you don't do something, something happens.
I feel like if you invest that much time as a developer into giving your players options and giving them different paths to go down, to pigeonhole them into the same ending no matter what, which Fable does.
Right.
Fable gives you the same
I mean,
the same ending every time.
A lot of games do that. The only differences are like some of the subtle things that like, oh, this guy was king, so the dwarves were prosperous, or this guy was king and the dwarves weren't prosperous. Right? But it's like in the end I still had to fight an archdemon.
Mm-hmm. But I think if you're going to invest that much time as a developer, you might as well give your players different endings.
Correct.
And then
like actual like world-changing endings.
Yeah, and then even something as simple as like, you just happen to be walking through Holbrook and you gave that, bum 50 copper, and that alone created its own ending somewhere down the road that's like
Correct.
super secret that nobody knows about. Everyone's going to be donating to the bums in our game now.
Right.
but it, like such an insignificant thing created such a significant outcome, which, I mean, you can relate that to life in general, but if you're going to invest the time into doing it, you might as well do it right. Because as much playability to me as Fable has, and as many times as I can go back to the game and still enjoy the same story, I would love it so much more if my actions actually affected. It affects the overall gameplay, but it doesn't affect the end. It doesn't affect that last thing that happens every time.
Yeah, you're still going to hit all the major battles. You're still going to hit the same timelines.
What about you? Making a single player game?
Can't.
You can't make a single player game?
No, not the way that I would like to see. Because like when you play D&D tabletop, it's open. Your decisions affect everything that goes on around you.
So you can't predict the unpredictable.
Correct. So the game would have to be massive massive.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm,
to
I
do
would,
it,
I think that
Or it's like procedural by voice.
your
right? AI, you have to AI it.
your world could be built with AI. I think like the NPCs have different reactions depending
Right.
on that's because by the time we get to where we want to be, I think that'll be an option.
Yeah.
Or at least I'm hoping that would be because then you really have like you made a choice and like the AI is like, oh, we don't like that decision,
Right.
And there's a
100%.
consequence to that. That's
And
I was talking to John about that a few
Yeah.
weeks ago. Like that's what I want in an RPG or an
that would be
MMO,
perfect,
where
right?
you have decisions that you don't think are going to matter in a game, and then you
Because
messed
they
up.
never have.
And
Yeah.
now this is
You
happening.
gotta hit the
Or-
reset button.
and I think that's definitely possible with the technology and where things are going to the point where it's like your interactions in game do matter to you in that moment.
Yeah.
Like
Because when we play D&D, you guys know the end goal. You know what the mission is on the other end.
Right.
But how you get there is, I mean, I could never predict
right.
1/10 of the decisions that you guys make to how to get there.
Or what we argue about, like
Right,
why are
yeah.
we
Or
arguing
what you're
about
stuck
this
on,
tiny little
right?
point? But you can't tell us it's a tiny point because it'll ruin the illusion.
Yeah.
So
Like, why did they just all of a sudden decide that that dog on the side of the road that I just happened to describe in that town 6 towns back was now like pivotal to this entire story just because I happened to describe the dog with no tail? Like, my players latched onto that, and now it's like pivotal to this entire story.
Captain Fancy Pants.
right?
I didn't think he was gonna have a big role.
Wasn't that the kobold?
That was the goblin.
Oh,
the
Goblin
goblin.
with his fancy pants.
He was happy.
That was fun.
So many stories. But that's the whole point, right? And AI, I'm thinking about it right now when you said that, it's 100% right. You'd have to have AI give it the end goal, and here's the decisions that everybody's going to make, and this is the got to be self-interpreted. That would be an amazing story.
Yes.
I mean, you've seen what I've been able to do with like ChatGPT, just in the stuff I've sent in Discord, and even like some of our art stuff. Like AI is it's around the corner. It's gonna be some crazy fun stuff.
Yeah,
We're not controlled by it.
right. If you could sit down and have a conversation with AI and have AI, this is what I want. If I could do it with my demented DM brain,
Demented. And you said his book's a little dark.
it's dark. I said I was demented.
That's fair. But yeah, I think if I had one thing that I would want to bring to a single player game, I would want to change like how characters are built. Because like you look at how like some of these games do their skill trees. You look at how some of these games do their character progression, and
That's
it's like
a whole nother podcast, buddy.
Yeah.
oh yeah,
That's all.
we can't talk about it until we
Yeah.
do it because
Right.
we've already had hour-long discussions on what we want to fix.
Correct.
But we can't agree on anything.
Redacted.
Yeah, we can. No, we've agreed. John and I were arguing the same point for like 2 hours, and both of us were like, "Oh, yeah, we just got there different ways." I
Which
remember
happens
we
quite
were
often.
sitting here like yelling at each other in the office about that one day.
Yeah.
He's like,
I was-
why are you using fucking circles?" I'm like, "It's circle, box, square, whatever you want." Oh, that was freaking hilarious,
No,
honestly.
you got wrapped up on the name, what he was calling it.
Oh, that's right.
The VX
The
stuff.
VX and the V.
No.
That was a totally different
Yeah.
You were
argument.
calling it a skill, and you were calling it a something else. It was exact. You guys were saying the
No,
exact
I
same
was
thing.
calling it like a tree.
Yeah,
I was calling it a tree, and John, I don't remember what you were calling it.
Wheelbarrow.
something. They were
Something.
literally saying
was-
the same
it
thing,
was
but just calling
hilarious.
it different, and they argued for 2 hours about it was different stuff.
Yeah.
You guys have some doozies, dude.
Yeah.
Smokes.
Listen, I'm pretty sure I'm right on the UE,
The
the UI.
UI versus UX.
UX,
I
yes.
agree to disagree. Have a whole podcast where we just outline like why.
We should have a debate podcast, like a formal debate podcast. Okay, and how do you respond?
I respond with John, you're an idiot. All right. Well, on that note, me talking about mechanics, I actually wanted to show you guys our dev spotlight for the week.
Bum, ba, da, bum.
You should give me like some like music to like dev spotlight. I don't know.
Coming at you.
Bush League Gaming has forever young. I mean, we could definitely get something up in here.
Mariah Carey's Fantasy.
No.
I thought that was your PvP jam.
Oh,
Take a peek at this one, yeah. I will make it bigger. Calm down. Description of it first.
Yeah, I saw this earlier.
So this is
Resource management dwarfs with mechs.
yeah.
Shut the
This
hell up.
is.
Where?
Can you give me 10 seconds? This is First Dwarf. So our shout out this week is Star Drifters. They've published a few games, but they haven't released this game specifically yet. I am very much looking forward to it, and I don't look forward to single player games, except for the one John bought me the other day, which I still play.
potion. craft.
Just a quick synopsis. If there's one thing dwarves are better at than grooming their beards, it's engineering. Jump into your mech, build a base, and explore the crumbled fantasy world. This immersive action RPG. We're going to take a look at this because I guarantee Han did not watch this earlier.
Maybe appropriate.
I'm not normally a fan of this art style, but it does it for me on this game.
No, it was very well done. I was looking at how they designed the mana from the earth. All that.
Yeah. Well, that's almost reminiscent of like what you do on Factorio and Satisfactory and all that.
Okay.
Enemies, combat, you have to defend yourself. Oh, so they just like spawn out. Looks like a very open, very immersive world.
Very limited.
Dwarves are good at engineering, my man. Yeah. In our world, it's the gnomes and dwarves really kicking butt on that one.
Yeah, that'd be definitely when I would drop.
Yeah. Day and night cycles, actually really good. So first dwarf, and it even says add to wish list right now. So that'll be coming to PC, Xbox, and I believe PlayStation. Yeah, PlayStation 5 and Nintendo Switch. So they got on there too. That's pretty crazy. I'll probably pick it up for the Switch. It'll be.
Does
think
it
that- I
have
think
a
that'll be good.
multiplayer mode?
At the moment, it is only single player. So it's not down that rabbit hole of having player yet. But I think it's something kind of like Satisfactory, where it's going to be a transition over time, where they're going to keep moving on, giving you more and more as time goes on.
What's that factory still
No, it's released.
released?
Yeah.
Recently?
Well,
I think it
kinda
released in, like,
reminds me.
4.0.
Is it Valheim, where you go, you're building your little village and stuff?
Yes,
I think that's gonna be better,
I think this is going to be much better than Valheim.
even though Valheim's supposed to have like more realistic graphics. I didn't like I refunded it when I like
The graphics on Valheim were, yes, technically more realistic, but the mechanics were so unbelievably broken
Yep.
that it just wasn't enjoyable to play.
Right. I think that would be fun though. I got Valheim thinking it was something I could build in and enjoy. I'm not much of a builder in games and stuff like that, so I don't usually play them. But I would play First Dwarf. It would be nice if it had like a multiplayer mode. You could,
Ooh,
like,
it
build
actually. So I'm on the Steam page right now. So it says single player, and then it says shared split screen co-op.
Oh snap!
So
Well, how
it
would-
might be.
we have PC. It wouldn't split our screens.
All
What
it
is
says is shared / split screen co-op. So not
It- it-
100%
it-
sure.
If it's what I think it is, it'll do the remote play and then it'll do split screens for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, coming
That's a
from the
good point.
coder over there with some decent information on the topic.
No, that looks like a cool game.
No, I'm very much looking forward to being able to take a look and play that one.
What's the release date on?
It does not have a release date. It just has coming soon. So there's no price, no release date. But I'm looking forward to seeing what this company does with it and what they. Honestly, I'm kind of curious on the price. Curious on what they put out.
$25.99.
But they actually won the Mix Official Selection Indie Cup. Most promising game
snap.
award.
Wow.
Oh, sorry, correction. They were a nominee. They didn't win it.
Oh.
They were just a nominee. My bad.
Hey, sometimes it's just enough to be nominated.
Wow, they were a nominee in official selection. We Play Expo, DreamHack Beyond, and DevPlay official selection, and Intel Award. Pixel Awards Europe. Wow,
Wow,
that's crazy
they were nominated.
that they were nominated.
That
Now
many
it
times.
makes me wonder who got it. But regardless, yeah, very much looking forward to playing with some dwarves.
In
But,
mech suits.
That didn't sound right at all.
Redacted.
Redacted. Yeah, we won't go political on that one. So, any news, any updates about our game?
I thought the spotlight was the last of it.
I
Is
made
this a new segment?
Introducing a new segment.
The Sundered updates.
Sundered updates. Oh, okay. Wow.
Sundered updates. We're about a month out.
About a month
Yeah.
out.
Same
Same as we were 6 months ago.
yes. After some, I wouldn't say stupidity, but just like
Learn
backwards and going backwards. We pretty much, rolled back down the mountain that we climbed and
that's the best way to
pushed
do
the
it.
rock up about halfway and decided to go to the other mountain, back to the other mountain. Oh,
crushed us.
right.
I feel like there's been a lot of learning these last 2-3 weeks.
However, getting our original game from, loading like 11 gigs at the beginning of the moment you hit launch, buying your phone, and like said nope to 1.3 now, significantly better.
That's a lot of gigs, John.
Yeah, yeah, it is. He's blaming the artist, but it was the coder
It's
that
fun.
broke it.
Because of the artists.
Stay tuned for the Sundered debate next week.
Agree to disagree?
Agree to disagree.
I'm just saying he could have done a lot of stuff to lower his end, but
We're
chose
not
not
doing
to.
stick figures.
That's on him, not me.
My dark elves are a little bit darker. How's that?
Darker as in darker.
Darker.
Not darker.
Not darker.
I don't think,
Some
I
twin-
don't think,
I don't think
emphasizing the word quite gets that across.
Darker.
That's the point.
All right. Well, gamers and devs, that wraps up this episode of The Status Quo. We hope you enjoyed the dive into the world of gaming from our point of view. As we close today, we just want to say thank you for your support as we try to bring positive, insightful, and entertaining content to you every week. If you'd like to stay in contact with us beyond the podcast, follow us on all major social media platforms at Sundered_gaming. You can also check out our website at sunderedgaming.com for any upcoming content, sneak peeks, and announcements about our game. Join us next week where we will discuss conspiracy theories.
Yay!
We're all gonna pick a conspiracy theory.
Video
and,
game-
In the video game industry.
Yeah, video game industry. We might talk.
Clarify
We
that.
might talk about the
No
Titanic. I
second
don't know.
shooters, other ships,
Was
the moon landing's fake. None of that.
moon landing's fake? What's he? Oh, BlackRock owns everything. They want us to eat bugs.
The Earth is
That one's
flat.
actually not a conspiracy theory.
Black
but
Rock, you're correct.
anywho, not getting political here. This has been the status quo. Thanks for joining us.
Bum, bum, ba-dum, bum.
Smooth jazz.
Smooth jazz with. Where's the singing, John?
Where's my
We
trombone?
practiced. What's going on? Don't be shy.
We did all right.